now.
Sounds good. Hey, good evening, everyone. How y'all doing tonight? This is Professor Rick Duarte from the States. Tonight's guest is my good friend and fellow colleague, Professor Nigel Gray from New Zealand, the land down under, the other land down under, and Hobbit land. Now, tonight's episode, we're going to cover a number of things. Nigel will be the main speaker on this. I'll be listening. I'll be asking questions, and we'll be going from there. But I'll give you a little background of why tonight's episode we both considered as important to record and to present to the public. Okay. First of all, the title of the show is Full Moon, Earthquake Drill and EMFs. Is a predicted mega quake in the cards for New Zealand in October? Good question. Is it? Now, in early November 2016, Weather Wars International Hall of Fame member and admin, Professor Nigel Gray, reluctantly issued a warning to his friends and fellow group website members of an impending major earthquake he believed would strike New Zealand on or around the time of a super full moon, November 14th. On November 14th, sure enough, Kaikoura was struck by a destructive and deadly magnitude 7-point earthquake. Nigel's prediction came true, and it became national news. As a matter of fact, it became international news. Nigel had become an overnight celebrity. Here we are, nearly 2 years later, and Nigel has noted a full moon for the 13th of October, and he has also observed some very strange anomalies and events that have occurred since the beginning of the month. With a national earthquake drill scheduled for the 17th, are we to witness déjà vu once again? This time with a mega tsunami? Good question. So, Kiwi, is this déjà vu all over again?
I am almost lost for words because of the amount of, how would you say, content of what has happened over the last couple of weeks in terms of significant information regarding this whole subject, if you like. Right? I'm trying to sort of put this in exact words here. Now, one thing I want to stress as well is that you mentioned last time when I put that message out about the Kaikoura quake. It was right. To my friends, it was as a warning. I didn't know it was going to go viral on the internet and thousands of people were going to see it.
Right.
So literally, after the earthquake happened, I spent the next 3 days on my computer answering communications. Also being called a fearmonger, a scaremonger, and lots of other nasty words.
I remember that.
Or what I said, death threats, the whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. Now, my following, if you like, on the subject has always been one of interest and wanting to let people know ahead of time, because I always like to know ahead of time what's happening so that you kind of have some sort of preparation. We're going out today. Great. Okay. I can think with that. But
well, yeah, it's like the same here in the United States. You know, we have a lot of tornadoes. It's nice to know we have a tornado warning system in place. So the siren goes off you know, a person knows to take cover because a tornado is coming. And, you know, I would like to know that as opposed to finding out after the fact. So I'm in agreement with you, Kiwi. Go ahead.
Sure, you know, to finish what I was saying is, you know, if somebody says to you, hop in the car, we're going, and you're like,
Right.
hold on a moment, where are we going? I didn't, you know, choose to go or anything like that. Now, if somebody
Right.
says half an hour before it happens, look, we're going to go out in half an hour, I can't tell you where, even then you have, oh, okay, we're going to go out. I can think a little bit with that. It's not going to happen for half an hour. That lets me finish off a couple of things. You got some prediction there.
Right.
And it's like that. Now, the government is always stressing to us that we should be prepared for an earthquake. This is actually published in the news media constantly. Warnings from the government. There could be earthquakes. There could be earthquakes. There could be earthquakes. And be prepared. Be prepared. And so here we are. And you know, I made up a meme this morning. How ironic it is, you know, that when they keep telling you to be prepared, and then you are really prepared by saying, well, there could be an earthquake coming, and you're like called a scaremonger.
Yeah. It's interesting how people evaluate you versus how they really don't evaluate the media. You know, give you, for instance, Stuff, which is a popular news website down there in New Zealand. I would virtually say every month or two, they always put out something with regard to an impending earthquake and being prepared. You know, I'm here in the States and I watch that, and this has been going on for at least 2-3 years. So why don't they tell, you know, Stuff, you know, are you fear mongering us? Well, no. We're just telling you, be prepared. That's all it is. And that's all we're doing tonight as well, too. Always be prepared. You know, it could be a flood, it could be a hurricane, it could be a tornado. Whatever the circumstances may or may not be, always be prepared. You know, I can, you know, growing up as a kid, of course, we went through that, with the atomic bomb drill, you know, where you hide under your desk. Like that's going to save your life. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It was a joke. Or build yourself an underground home. So if there is a nuclear attack, you know, you'd be able to save yourself. Well, we never did that crap. I mean, that was ridiculous. But, you know, in the sense of knowing your environment, you know, there's going to be heavy rain, there's going to be floods, there might even be a tornado, there might be a hurricane. Whatever catastrophic event that you may encounter, it's human nature to be able to be prepared. Okay? You know, and you know, no, my parents never taught me to be prepared for such events. Intuitively or innately, I knew to be prepared for this. So all my life, I've always kept extra water in the house. I've kept extra food in the house, especially with the way canned goods. I made sure I had a, you know, can opener and all the et ceteras that go along with that. You know, the blankets. I never did keep a lifesaver though. You know, well, you know, it's just one of the things that didn't cross my mind. But you're always prepared for these sort of things. So, you know, if something were to happen, I'd sit back leisurely in a lounge chair and basically just watch it happen because I am prepared. But go ahead and continue about being prepared and why this, you know, fits in with tonight's show.
Right. So I have been documenting for several years weather modification, man-made weather modification over New Zealand. And when I say documenting, I just post what I see. I record what I see, often in videos, or I record photos of satellite images and so forth. And through doing that, occasionally I see patterns, I see unusual circumstances come up. Well, over the last few weeks, there has been basically through most of September, there has been heavy electromagnetic frequencies, EMF, that is, over New Zealand skies.
Okay.
And I am able to see that through the satellite and satellite images on the weather websites for New Zealand and Australia. And so I have seen a lot of these images, a lot of EMF over the last weeks, as I say, and that really started ramping up last Friday. On Friday, from that point, there was a series of accidents in New Zealand. I use the word accidents reservedly, if you like, because there were so many of them that I could only look at it as being possibly coincident with a beam that I saw that was on Saturday. Now, actually, I have to check on my dates on that, but we had a beam Saturday, Sunday. We had quite a bit going on the EMF, and there was a particular EMF beam that I made a recording of, made a video of, shared it on Facebook, on YouTube, and but let me run through these accidents and the sort of timeline on that. Friday there was a motorbike went into Friday there was a.
That's good. I'm glad you're covering what type of accidents are we talking about. Good.
Right, right. So and I'm, you know, this isn't to laugh or you know, these were fatal accidents.
Right.
You know, I'm not putting this out here to display. I'm not mentioning any names or anything like that. Okay, but I'll run through it. In Woodville, there was a, which is not a whole long way from here. I live in Hawke's Bay, central North Island, and there was a motorbike on a track, on a walking track, plowed into 5 people, and a 2-year-old baby was killed.
Wow. Okay.
And I think that was kind of like the beginning of this whole string of accidents. Now, Saturday, and I might get these a little bit reversed. I might have to come back on some, but Saturday there was a car accident there. Oh, right. This was one we witnessed. We went from this side of the coast, the east to the west of the North Island, to Palmerston North. And on the way back, about 5 p.m., we saw a car accident, which we didn't even get close to. Because the road was closed off, and everyone was flashing their lights and waving wildly at us to not go that way. I counted 3 police cars, and we saw 1 ambulance. Now, strangely enough, and this is odd in itself, that accident was not reported in any media I could find.
Really? That's unusual.
It's weird, you know, and I just haven't seen anything. I searched for 3 whole days, 3-4 days. I was searching on the media internet for media on it. Couldn't find a thing, right?
Wow.
Okay, so that was Saturday. Sunday, and I'm just sort of mentioning these things. There was a 2.4 magnitude earthquake. Where was that? Oh, in Martinborough, which is again central North Island. Now, here's the weird thing. That earthquake was recorded at 8:02 p.m. on Sunday evening.
Okay.
Now, that same Sunday evening, a light plane was supposed to land. Its arrival time was due to land at 8 p.m. Right? It crashed, and 2 people were killed. The pilot was a manager of a technology company, and the instructor was a fire chief.
Huh.
Now we're talking about 2 responsible adult men flying a plane in what was not bad weather. It was the weather was fine, right? They crashed in the Tararua Ranges, which is very close to Martinborough, and it appears to have happened very close to that same time, like just prior to 8 o'clock. The earthquake happened at 8:02 p.m. 2.4 magnitude, not a big earthquake by any means. Okay, so that was then. Monday, 4 a.m. in the morning, a man aged in his 80s in Christchurch phoned 111, which is the emergency number here,
Right.
and reported that he was going to harm himself. The phone was then left off the hook, and they heard some loud bangs. When the police went to the house, the husband, who was in his 80s, as I say, his wife, who was in her 70s, and I believe their dog or cat, all dead. He had shot his wife, killed himself, and killed the cat or dog. One or the other. Okay.
Right.
So that was
Gotcha.
at 4 a.m. on Monday. During Monday, my wife and I were driving, and this is just a small little, another one of those seemingly insignificant things.
Yeah, but I was hoping you were going to bring this up. If you didn't, I was going to remind you. But go ahead. I know where you're going with this. You told me about this, and this is very unusual. This is good.
Yeah, one of those seemingly insignificant things that you might see on an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Right. Yeah, the birds.
Exactly, the birds. We're driving along, and we weren't going any particular, we were actually, I think at that moment in time, going right on the speed limit, not over.
Okay.
Which is unusual around here, I will say. But however, we're driving along a straight piece of road, and there are a bunch of magpies. And so I'm thinking about other things, and I was not particularly distracted. The car was going straight down the road, and I wasn't veering off or anything like that. And I didn't think anything much of it, because magpies are so damn smart. They always manage to taunt you by flying right in front of your car and flying by. Well, this magpie hit the car. And I'm like, my wife and I are both sitting in the car, still driving along, in disbelief, going, what just happened? We just hit a magpie, Now, in Australia, by the way, killing magpies is against the law. It's actually a protected species in Australia. It's not in New Zealand.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's their national bird, I think. Anyway, I'm not out. I definitely, let me put it this way. Rabbits are a pest in New Zealand. However, if I see a rabbit running across the road, I won't hit it. I'll slow down and let it get across. I'm not the kind of guy who just smacks into things for thrills. I'm not that person.
Yeah, it's like here in the United States, we have a lot of squirrels. I break for squirrels. I always have.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
It's just another bird, but I don't deliberately smack into them. So anyway,
Exactly.
So that happened. So moving on from there, so we'd gone and done some work, and we were driving home about 5 o'clock and we heard the sirens go off. Well, see, we're on, because we're in a small town, they have volunteer fire brigades, so they have a siren go off.
Okay.
So that it lets all the locals who are the volunteers know that they have to get down to the fire station pronto and man
Right.
the fire trucks.
Okay.
So the sirens go off in the town we were in, Northwood, and we're going, oh, okay, somebody's had a car accident somewhere. Usually it's car accidents because around here there's wind and there's always a reason for it, and there's always crazy drivers. So, people are constantly, well, sure enough, there had been a fatal car crash at 4:50 p.m. Just about, I'd say, a mile, 2 miles from where we live.
Right.
Now, the car had hit a sheep or cattle truck, and it looked like a head-on from what I could see. It was a very stupid move. They had come around a corner, a curve, not really a corner, just a curve in the road. So they must have been traveling fast.
Yeah.
And probably hadn't seen the cattle truck quick enough, didn't move over to the left quick enough, and the cattle truck ended up in the paddock, and I didn't even get to see the colour of the car. I didn't even get to see it at all.
Yeah.
They closed the highway off, so we had to do another detour like we had on Saturday evening. So we thought I had said to my wife, let's eat out tonight. We'd already planned this, by the way, before we even knew about this. We were on our way to eat out at that point in time. And so we went to a local restaurant. And we were sitting at the restaurant, and a message comes through on my phone. 5.4 earthquake in Wairoa.
Right. Good.
Now that reminds me, because that was on Monday. So on Sunday, I had seen this beam. It was Sunday that I saw the beam. The beam that I'm talking about was an electromagnetic frequency beam that was shooting right through the central North Island, that went from up where Gisborne is. If you get a map out of New Zealand, you can see this. From
Right.
Gisborne on downward into central New Zealand,
Right.
central North Island, and passing over Wairoa directly. Wairoa was on one edge of that beam, but it was definitely there. So now we have a beam going through, all of these strange accidents, and a 5.4 earthquake. I'm starting to see warning bells. Now, I haven't seen this much EMF activity since before the Kaikoura quake.
Right.
And when I saw that earthquake activity, and something else that we're just about to cover,
Okay.
I, at that point in time, 2014 in Kaikoura, I said, look, I got to put a message out about this, but heads up, warning to my friends. So I did. Now I'm saying, well, look, I want to warn people now, because I haven't even finished with the anomalies that I am about to tell you. So it carries on. I get home later, Monday night, and I'm looking at hello on the news. The National Airways radars went down on Monday during the day.
Right.
I think it was about 2:30 or something. Now, this is kind of interesting that they said that the reason why the radars went down was that there was a power cut and a smoke detector alarm went off. And so they blamed the smoke detector. Now, if that ain't a weird story, right? You know, it's like I'm starting to go, well, when this is all happening, I'm starting to go, well, hell, this is like out of a good movie. This is just nuts.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. That's no. They
So
don't go down because of smoke detector.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. So 36 flights were delayed as a result of that radar going down. Now, and again, keep in mind that the radars went down nationally for the airlines, but it was only on Sunday night that we had that plane crash.
Right.
Right. So plane crash on Sunday night. Monday, the radars are down. Right now, you know, again, there's a little connection there that you know we're looking at, and then if you look at electromagnetic frequencies, radars run on electromagnetic frequencies. EMF beams are electromagnetic frequencies. You see, so there's all this tying in. Okay, 8:28 p.m. there was a 2.8 magnitude earthquake. That was 8 kilometers deep, in Culverden, which is, I think that's up the top of the North Island, if I'm right. You know, yeah.
Okay.
Shoot me for not being New Zealander enough to remember that one. But anyway, okay. Then now, sort of, we're kind of coming off the end of this, tail end of this heavy EMF activity and this heavy accident stream, if you like. But on 9:30 a.m. In South Taranaki, there was another car crash that was serious injury, not a fatality this time. But South Taranaki, that's over the west coast, and you know, still central North Island. So now that's quite a list. I think I've got most of it. There very likely have been a couple of things I've missed, but that was the most of the list of all the accidents, and it's taken me all this time just to relay it. So that's you know, and keep in mind that what I just relayed to you is you know, what have we got? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days, and a number of fatalities later.
Yeah, you brought up the, and I'm glad you really expounded upon those accidents, because those are strange events. When you have that many over a short period of time, and you can almost relate it to the EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. So not only does it affect electronics, of which we all know about, you know, in the news over, oh God, how many years, you know, EMF attacks, you know, shutting down the grid, you know, that's been talked about. But what a lot of people don't realize is those electromagnetic frequencies also affect human behavior. And not only do they affect human behavior, they also affect animal behavior as well too.
Well, can I mention, you know, just as one example of that, and I only just thought of this just this moment, but the American embassy in Cuba was evacuated a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
That because, and they found that all of these, what was happening to them? But they were getting serious illness, deafness, and so forth.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics, but it wasn't as bad as the U.S. Embassy in Russia, you know, some 20 years earlier, where in Russia, there, the U.S. Embassy, our U.S. Staff was coming down with cancer. So they shipped them all back to the United States, put other people in there, and they came down with cancer within 6 months as well, too. But the Cuba was, oh, God. I wish I could remember a couple of
why I mentioned that one is they specifically pointed out that it was from electromagnetic frequencies stuff that they had pointed to that as the cause. The only thing they didn't know was who did it. but
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
for us, that doesn't matter. What matters is that it happened and that it was how do you say, it was put down to electromagnetic frequencies, and that's the point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, put the pause button on. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay, good. Now, that's good. I didn't realize that there were that many strange and unusual events that have gone on. You made me familiar with some of them over the past week or so, but my eyebrows have been raised a little bit, obviously, because to have that many occurrences going on, it begins to make me wonder as well too, what the hell is really going on. But I've got to ask you, along with these strange and unusual events, you know, that have been, if you will, tied with EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, here in the next week or so, week to 10 days, we have a couple other things that are going on as well too. On Sunday here in the United States, on the 13th of October, we have the full moon. In New Zealand, it's going to be on the 14th. Then in New Zealand, as well as other countries on the planet, are having a what's called a national shakeout day, which is an earthquake preparedness or an earthquake drill day, which is on the 17th. And then there's something that follows thereafter as well too, which I don't recall. But in New Zealand, there's about 650,000 people who have actually signed aboard for this earthquake drill. So I want you to tie in on these anomalies and these strange and unusual events that you've noticed over here over the past several weeks, and tie it in with the full moon, and tie it in with the earthquake preparedness drill that's coming up on the 17th. You know, that's really roused my curiosity enough to be able to ask the question and to know something's up. Because anytime we have, it's very interesting. If you watch your history, there's always a drill that's going on at the time of a catastrophic event. One was in London with the subway bombing on July 7th. I forgot what year it was. Okay, as they were rehearsing this drill, the same damn scenario came up. And then we come back to 9/11 as another example. Well, they were doing a drill, and guess what happened? 9/11 came up. So are we looking at a quote-unquote another deja vu coupled with the full moon and the earthquake preparedness day on the 17th? Perhaps you can answer that question for me, Kiwi.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, good.
But before I do that, let me point out one thing as well, is that with all of those string of accidents that I mentioned, that you've got to keep in mind that New Zealand has a population, just the census has just been done, there's a population of 4.7 million, and
right.
There are well over 1 million living in Auckland alone. Now, central North Island, where most of these accidents have happened, not all, someone was in the Christchurch thing and so forth, but central North Island is largely farming area, and so it's not really a high population density as well. So when you see these accidents happen, it's in a small population base. So for the number of accidents, it's like, and something like USA, if there was that kind of that number of accidents, you probably wouldn't think, oh, you just think another day in Chicago, but with this place, I've got a bloody moth here now. Okay, in New Zealand, it's not that same population thing, so we're looking at it being very strange. Now, having said that, to answer your questions about the full moon and the earthquake drill, okay, I was only too aware of this. Let me talk about the earthquake drill for a starter, of the earthquake drill coming up.
Okay.
And that was raising my suspicions immediately, because going back, New Zealand is not different than the US in regard to drills happening on, or accidents happening, or events happening on drill days, if you like. And going back on that, the recent mass shooting in Christchurch, there was a terrorist drill being held the same day, what a coincidence, at Princess Margaret Hospital in the Kashmir Hills. So they had a terrorist drill day that very same day there's a mass shooting. Now, Kaikoura earthquake, there just happened to be a military drill going on that was between US and New Zealand, and there was a US ship just off the coast of Kaikoura at the time, all ready to rescue everybody. Now, going back
what
to
odds? What are the odds? You know? Yeah.
Right. Now, going back to Christchurch, and I mean, I'm not going to mention a whole lot about that situation, but suffice to know that that on that day there was a US trade mission in town in Christchurch,
Right.
and just and what they were speaking of were, you know, as I say, there's a whole series of stories about this, but amongst all of that, there was there just happened to be a FEMA. One of the heads of FEMA in the US, with Federal Emergency Response Agency, just happened to be in Christchurch that day. And
what happened?
And they even made a point of saying how fortunate it was that he happened to be there on that day.
And didn't they fly out a couple hours later before the earthquake hit?
2 hours before
genius.
the earthquake, they flew out. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. See, they didn't get the cooperation of the New Zealand government. So adios, amigos.
Right, and this was the one that that later came out in Clinton emails, Hillary Clinton emails of where she emailed there was an email that was like it went off without a hitch or something like that.
Exactly, and I've got a copy of that. I've got a copy of that email.
Right. So yeah, earthquake. So when somebody says earthquake drill, I start getting a little twitchy.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
You know, and not for no reason, you know. And I don't mean that literally. I don't start twitching or anything. But,
right, exactly.
You know. So that was it on that. So that's on the 17th of October. And then with all these sort of events adding up, I asked you. I said, what are the odds of there being a full moon just coming up? Sure enough. So 14th of October, there's a perigee, which is when the moon is closer to Earth than, you know, it goes in cycles. And so sometimes it's a perigee, which is closer to Earth, and sometimes it's an apogee, which is further away.
Right.
And this time it happens to be a perigee. Now, isn't that a coincidence that it just conveniently happens in October, the same, you know, with the earthquake drill and all of this, right? Now, why the interest in the moon? And I'll tell you this, is everyone who's listening will have heard of the term king tide, which is when there is a full moon, the tides come in more than they normally would, due to the gravitational pull of the moon. Increased gravitation.
we just had one on the east coast of Florida, and the king's tide brought in the surge from the king's tide due to the the pull of the moon was something like 1.3 feet up to almost 5 feet in some areas. So there was flooding. And I posted videos of that as well too. But go ahead.
Right. So there's noted to be this increased gravitational pull. Interestingly enough, when I predicted the Kaikoura quake, that was the only thing they reported accurately that I had said. They said that he predicted it because of the full moon, and then they got a series of they promptly got a series of scientists to debunk my claims that a full moon had anything to do with earthquakes. Which is kind of interesting, you know, that they would go to all the trouble of getting scientific experts to debunk what I'd said. You know, I mean, why bother? You know, if I didn't mean anything, then why would they bother? You know.
Yeah, the only reason they're quote unquote scientific experts is because they went to school, got a degree, and didn't learn anything more than what they were taught in school.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
You know?
So now, when the Kaikoura quake happened, I managed to get into contact with a lot of people, and there was one guy who was a ham radio expert. Let me throw the word expert out the window because I hate that bloody word now. He was a ham radio guy, and
right.
Expert has a bad connotation now.
Okay.
So he was much more than an expert. He was a good guy. So I was talking with him about the full moon thing, and he introduced, and I was talking to him about the electromagnetic frequencies, and I said to him, look, do you suppose that, you know, because years ago, when I was a kid, I built my own radio set. I was quite into electronics and stuff. And I built a radio set, and I used to sit up till all hours of the night with headphones on, lying in bed, listening to Russian radio stations and Chinese trawlers off the coast of New Zealand and so forth. And
cool.
And what I did notice was that when there was a full moon, you tended to get better reception, and so you get something from further away. And I mentioned, and I mentioned it to this guy, and I said, you know, knowing that, I said, what are the odds? What do you think that they could be using the moon, you know, this better reception thing as a way of, you know, getting a better result with an electromagnetic pulse to set off an earthquake? And he said, oh, hell yeah. He said, when there is a full moon, in ham radio terms, it's called bouncing off the moon, because that's literally what they do. They bounce the signal off the moon, and they can talk to people a lot further away than they normally would.
Right.
Like in the US or something.
Yeah, that's true. You know, here, let me interject something as well too. And this is early on before I became astute about everything that is going on today. I can remember as a kid, when I say a kid, I was probably about 14 years old, and I had just a regular radio inside my bedroom. And I didn't play it all the time, but every once in a while I'd play it. And I can remember there were a couple times during the middle of the night, like maybe, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, as an example, where I was listening to what I thought I was going to listen to my normal radio station. All of a sudden, I'm getting a radio station from a faraway place. I can't recall exactly what it was, but it was in English, okay? But it wasn't anywhere close to the United States. It you know, could have been from New Zealand or Australia, could have been from England. And I thought that was really curious. How in the hell does that happen? So there has to be something going on at nighttime, you know, with the radio signals bouncing off, you know, the planet Earth I didn't know about the moon at that time, but I said, that's very interesting. I paid a lot of attention to that. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, well, I used to enjoy. I got things from Spain and France, and I mean, really, I just about did the planner with my radio. I had, by the way, I had wires going out my bedroom window, and halfway up, we lived on a hill, and they were like going up the hill and all over the place. They had wires everywhere, and you know, so I had a lot of fun with it. But
Right.
here's the thing. So I told you about the beam. Going through Wairoa, that was on,
Right.
what did I say, Saturday, whenever it was, Sunday. And I made a video about that. And then yesterday morning, I saw another beam, and it was, and this was curious, and it was aiming right into Christchurch, Canterbury again, right? And I'm thinking, whoa, you know, and it wasn't coming from the same direction as that other one that I saw in Wairoa. I don't know where that beam was coming from. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me, really. The fact is, it was definitely an EMF beam. But this one coming from into Christchurch was coming from the South Pacific. And so I looked on Google Maps and tracked it down to Antipodes Island, or thereabouts, somewhere around that area.
Now, here, let me interject. Antipodes Islands is southeast of New Zealand by about 830 kilometers, which is about 500 miles away from New Zealand.
Right.
You know, I get up as far as that goes. So, but go ahead at this point.
Well, yeah, well, on the radars, as far as I could see, you know, because it's pretty limited, because you have, you know, one size image here, and the Google Maps was a different size image and so forth. But it looked like that ray going into Christchurch, that beam was coming directly from that area. And so I made a short video on that, which there's a little twist to this whole thing coming up.
Right.
And I'm starting to go, whoa, you know, there are way too many coincidences happening here. And so that was another thing that ties in. Now, I think at this point it's worth mentioning the HARP, electromagnetic frequency, high. Can you do the high?
No.
Oriole. The HARP in Alaska.
It's in Alaska.
It's an array of. It's an array. Actually, array is one of the words. Array.
Yeah, exactly.
An array of antennas that are used to send these electromagnetic frequencies, and it has been used as ionospheric as one of the
heater.
Yeah.
Ionospheric heater.
Ionospheric heater. And so heating the ionosphere, the upper atmosphere, they can actually manipulate the weather and cause earthquakes and all kinds of various things, mostly sadistic, masochistic, and rather nasty.
Right.
So as it happens, the way the HARP works is it sends a signal out from Earth, and it comes around to the opposite corresponding, what's the word, corresponding point. They
call it conjugate point. It's a halfway point.
Conjugate, yeah.
You go from the North Pole to the South Pole, if you will. The South Pole will be considered the conjugate point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in this case, it's not a complete opposite. It's just sort of like half turn, depending on the distance you are. It goes to the equidistant on the planet on the other side.
That's correct. It's just a half circle, is what it is.
Yeah, so as it happens, and somebody I have to thank pointed this out to me and reminded me that down that end, and so that's a thank you to you, M. Rangi, because you are the one who reminded me of that whole thing, and
Right.
that is the Antipodes Island around that area is a correlating, a conjugating point for the heart in Alaska. And
Exactly.
so I am suddenly having one of those OMG moments, you know, oh my God.
Yeah. Let me interject something.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will contest what we're saying right here, right now, with regards to HARP in Kaikoura, Alaska, because that was shut down. It's been transferred over to the University of Alaska for experimental purposes and studies. But if you go directly east of Kaikoura, Alaska, you come to Norway, and it's called ISCAT, I-S-C, shit, I-S-A-T, okay? Now that's a super HARP. When I say super HARP, this is what I mean, okay? A super HARP, a HARP in itself put out some 5 billion gigawatts of electricity, okay? ISCAT, E-I-S-C-A-T, in Norway puts out 100 billion gigawatts. Now, here's the thing. This is a HARP-like facility, but a lot more powerful, okay? So the origin of this electromagnetic frequency developed by ESCAT can not only go from Norway, but now it can go all the way down to the South Pole and reverberate back up to Norway. And it works the same way. Just the locations have changed, but the method and the magnitude have changed tremendously. And
Right.
continue.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. And so as I say, this is all starting to add up, and we go, okay, there's a beam from Gisborne through Wairoa, central North Island. There's another one coming through on the South Island. We had a couple of days before that Wairoa quake, by the way, there was another quake down in Fiordland, which is on the western side of the South Island, down the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And it was a 4.7 quake.
I missed that one.
And I think it was about 25K deep or something. So still very shallow.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, that the fault line for New Zealand, we have a Hikurangi fault, which comes along the east coast of the North Island.
Okay.
At the Cook Strait, which is between the two islands, it crosses over, goes through Nelson at the top of the South Island, and goes straight down the Alpine, and they call it the Alpine Fault, on the slightly to the west of the mountains. And it comes out, guess where? Fiordland, where the quake was, down there.
Yeah.
Now, where that quake was, I was informed by that because I had pointed out that I saw EMF, a square of EMF, basically an EMF signature, right in Fiordland area, and so somebody messages me back, hey, I see that, and guess what? Only yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before, there was 4.7 quake there, and I'm like, whoa. I don't even know, you know, like how long they've been EMFing that area too, but I had been hearing stuff. Somebody else had messaged me that there was quite a bit of EMF going on down there as well. So, so now I am really with all of this information. I'm going, well, let's have a look at this. They are EMFing, in other words, putting beams out on both ends of the fault line.
Right.
What's the intention here? To me, it doesn't look very good. It looks like they're trying to set off a major quake. Now,
well, you know, and I agree with you. We talked about this a couple nights ago. Now, what's that fault line called off the east coast of North Island again?
Hikurangi.
Hikurangi. Okay, I was not aware of that. You know, in the past. I apologize for that. I thought it was pretty well up to date. You know, I've been under the understanding it was all alpine, but Hikurangi. Okay, I got that as far as that goes. Now, I want to tie this in also with what I told you about when you brought the subject up a few days ago about the EMF waves hitting the, you know, the Hikurangi fault line.
Hikurangi with a
Hikurangi.
Yeah.
You know, that's a new word in my mouth, so let me work it out.
Yeah.
But it reminded me, and I brought this up to you, of what Alana Freeland brought up in her book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the, you know, Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, her book of 2014, which I read thoroughly and gave book reviews on, blah, 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 and so forth. Is what happened prior to and on the day of the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami on March 11th, 2011. What she described was what's called the pump and dump, okay? Which HAARP was involved, and that's all been documented, where they put in the EMF waves into the fault line to soften the earth up, okay? So that's why you get these minor to semi-major earthquakes on a particular fault line. What it does, it softens the territory up. As in the case of the Fukushima earthquake, there was a 5.6 earthquake the day before, and the day of the earthquake and tsunami was a 9.0, 9.1. So
Yep.
when you correlate that to what you see going on right now on the fault off the east coast of New Zealand, one has to wonder, is the same sort of scenario being set up? Is that fault line being softened up where they can go ahead and generate a mega quake as well as a mega tsunami? And I'll tell you what, it would not surprise me in the least. Nothing surprised me. Surprised me for the simple reason is the technology is there, it's available, and it's been used before. Not only in Fukushima or Japan on March 11th, 2011, but it was also that same technology was used in Indonesia, the Great Sumatra earthquake that happens on Bacchus Day, 26th of December 2004, which killed well over 250,000 people.
Yeah.
But go ahead and, if, you know, you can elaborate or expound upon what I've said.
Okay, thank you. You just allowed me enough time to write myself a couple of remembrance notes for the other points that I want to cover, because honestly, there has never been so much information buzzing around on this subject. Okay.
Yeah, hey, Kiwi, can you take a pause? I'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay, I can. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead. You got a few more things to say, Kiwi? We're going to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes or so, and then then we'll basically sign off, and I'll carry that through at that particular point. But go ahead. You wrote down some notes while I took a little break there. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you didn't think that that was enough compelling evidence that something's going on, wait till you hear what I got yet. Okay. So
I can't.
So here we go. So one thing is, you mentioned, you know, they have significant power now. Well, you know, in all the years, they've been ramping up the technology. And my thoughts on this are that if they do plan to do a big earthquake, it's going to be a wham, you know, it's going to be a shindigger, if you like, a real, you know, whammy, because
Right.
they've got all that power there. They want to use it. Now, another interesting point about this, well, I'll just run through all the points. Number one, okay, we've only just had this climate change conference, or Greta Thunberg whole thing with the United Nations come up, and wouldn't it be perfect to convince everybody of climate change if there just happened to be a big earthquake?
Oh my God!
Right now,
I didn't even think about that.
I haven't finished, Rick. You wait till I knock your socks out with all the rest of the stuff I'm going to tell you.
Hey, listen, my mind blood doesn't get blown. You just blew my mind.
Okay, well, put your seatbelt back on, because what I got coming up, let me tell you. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so the climate change thing with Greta Thunberg, you know.
Yeah, I know.
I've got to throw this in, by the way. Is, you know, I couldn't help notice how many articles were carrying the headline of why are men so angry at Greta, old men so angry at Greta Thunberg. What is very humorous to me is that the very people who are funding Greta Thunberg are old men, Bill Gates, George Soros, and so forth. Anyway,
Right.
you can't make this shit up. Now, next point to point out is that the QUAKE, GNS put out for the earthquake drill, they put out a video that is a model earthquake scenario that they have created. Now, basically they have and I can't remember it's for a 7.8 or a 8 point something or other earthquake, a big one. And they show that it will happen and that there'll be a big tsunami from it. Now, guess where their central point for that big quake is supposed to be?
I don't remember, but I do remember that being put out, but I don't recall. But go ahead.
Right off the coast of Hawke's Bay.
No shit.
Central North Island, East Coast, which is exactly where the Hikurangi fault line is, and that is where we've been. Basically, it's this area where there's been getting a whole lot of electromagnetic frequencies, a lot of EMF, and this whole area where I saw that first beam and so forth. Okay.
Are you thinking about moving?
No, I'm not. We are right in by the mountains. I feel confident that we are in a fairly safe spot. So hopefully. What's that?
I said fairly confident.
I actually chose this spot because I chose well inland because of the tsunami risk. I actually did. I thought this whole thing.
How far inland are you?
Shit. As the crow flies, maybe 50K, 60Ks.
Oh yeah, you should be okay.
Yeah,
you should be okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and continue.
I researched this location geographically as being a safe spot. And one of the big things was I didn't want to be in Auckland City. I didn't want to be in a built-up area.
Right.
And I want to be well away from the coast. Sorry for anyone who lives in those circumstances. I'm not trying to upset you any more than don't watch this video. Okay.
Right.
So carrying on, so the tsunami video, the earthquake model video is based off the East Coast, Central North Island. Okay, these two other interesting aspects. On Friday night, I think it was, there was an unusual piece of news came up that caught my attention. And it was a park in Auckland where there is a monument being built, and the locals don't like the size of the monument, right? Now, why would that relate to what we're talking about? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the monument was to the Erebus airplane disaster of 1979, 28th of November 1979 to be exact, where an Air New Zealand flight went down to the Antarctica on a tour flight, hit Mount Erebus by mistake, and 237 passengers and 20 crew were killed on 28th of November 1979, right? Now note the date, right? It's very close to this era, this October, November, right? Now, okay, let's coming forward in time. Right, suddenly there was this argument about this Erebus monument. This just happens to be in the media right now. Okay, you know, you can take that or leave that as a coincidence. The Pike River mine disaster has recently been in the news in the last couple of weeks because the relatives were just recently allowed to go back into the mine to sort of enter the first area. Now, why is that significant? 29 men were killed in that mine disaster, and when did it happen? 19th of November 2010, right? So both of those large disasters involving New Zealanders in November, 28th of November for Erebus, 19th of November for Pike River. You know, you can do whatever you like with the rest of those numbers. You know, there is this whole subject of numerology, and people go, well, you know, 20 crew, 237 passengers, 28th of November, you know, 19th of November 2010, 29 men killed. Well, you can add those numbers however you like, but I'm seeing the Erebus thing mentioned, the Pike River mentioned. We've got this model video, model earthquake video off the coast. There's so many indicators, it's just not even funny. And so to top it all off, I got messaged tonight on Facebook. One of my contacts, I won't mention her name for her benefit, for her protection, if you like, has just been banned from Facebook till October 13th because she tried to share my video of the beam going into Christchurch from Antipodes, and she went click to share it, and it said action blocked, and didn't give her a reason why, and said you have been banned from Facebook for sharing any posts till October 13th.
Really? Now this had to do with what video she was trying to relay?
The one that I made yesterday morning, showing a beam into Christchurch from the Antipodes, the EMF beam, and she just went to share that to her one of her pages, and she got blocked.
That's interesting. So apparently they've red flagged your video.
It hasn't been blocked yet. I mean, I've still got it up.
No, I didn't say blacked. I said red flagged.
Yeah.
That tells Facebook or YouTube this is not to be transmitted any further than what it's gone. And anybody who tries to do it will be blocked from attempting to do so. That's what I mean by red.
There's nothing violent, nothing graphic, no rudeness. There's no people even in the videos. It's just some freaking cloud. That's all there is in the video, in my horrible voice. You know, but I mean that's all there is. There's no threats, nothing in the video. It's
right.
There's nothing to, you know, to how do you say, you know, like no reason to block it.
Well, seemingly so, but the powers that be say you're exposing one of our major secrets here. So that's why you red flag. But yeah, I
So,
got that.
so really, I've said all I have. I will allow you to end off, Rick, and all I can say as a parting word really is that I've just given you all the information that I have just continued to document and reel in and so forth, and you can add that up however you like. I am presenting it so that you can make your own decisions, people, to how you deal with that or whatever. But at least I'm letting you know what I think is important.
That's good, and I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate your time. I really do. I mean, we've gone probably about an hour and a half right now, which
Sure.
is longer than I expected. But that's okay. I think personally we've covered all the avenues that we needed to cover for this evening. Okay. Now, once again, I want to reiterate: we're not here to scare people. We're not fear mongers. We just want people to be aware of what's going on in their environment or what could be going on in their environment. Is to don't be scared, be prepared. Okay?
Can I say
Now,
one last thing on that?
sure.
And that is that you know it may just happen that nothing happens. That we don't have an earthquake within these few weeks, and I'd be happily wrong if wrong is the right word. It's not wrong. It's if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and that's a good thing. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, well, look, there's a strong likelihood that something could happen. Do what you like with that, but I would suggest being prepared. That's all.
exactly. And that's why I was going to sum it up as well too. So you said it best. You got the information. You can do with what you want with it. Okay, Kiwi. Again, thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciated. And I hope our audience appreciates it as well too. You have a good night, have a good evening, and give my loves and hugs to your wife.
Thank you very much, and good night to you.
Good night, Nigel.